And then one day, when I was 45 years old, and my youngest chick was about to fly the coop, I was sitting in a dentist office, and I was praying. Because I had a hole. There was a hole that needed to be filled in my life, and I didn't know what it was. And I was praying, Lord, show me what it is. There's something I'm supposed to be doing, but I just don't know what it is. And right there in that dentist office, don't you love it how Papa God meets us wherever we are? In a dentist office, in a bib, it doesn't matter. He gets to us. Well, that still small voice whispered 2 words to my heart. It's time. And I thought about it. It's time. And I knew immediately what he was telling me. It's time to chase that dream that I put in your heart all those years ago. Well, there was a problem with that, you see, because I was not a writer. I hadn't written anything since high school, basically, and I was 45 at that time. And I had basically only written Christmas newsletters. That was the extent of my creative writing. But I felt that I needed to pursue this. I just felt the burn in my soul. So I pursued it. I knew that if the Lord is willing, you know, it's going to happen. If he wills it, he fulfills it. So I started looking around, and I found a mentor, which was wonderful. Friend of a friend who had had a little writing experience in publishing. Mostly at that point magazine articles, which is what was my goal. Books was kind of in the fur distance, and right now I was just going to focus on magazine articles. So I didn't even know how fortunate I was or how blessed I was, but that first year I was able to have 10 articles published in magazines. I didn't know that was so good until later when I started going to writers' conferences, and I heard people say, I've been writing for 30 years and I've had none published or one published. So I didn't realize how amazing that was, that Papa God was moving me along the fast track there. I guess because I was so old, I guess, you know, at the time, I don't know, late bloomers, there's something to be said for late bloomers. So one thing led to another. I ended up writing for the Christian Voice newspaper, which you guys get here. I'm the Grace Notes column. I started doing that about 7 or 8 years ago. I still do it today. And then that led to one day that holy nudge that, you know, what about your original dream, Deb? You wanted to write a book like Christy. And I started thinking, well, yeah, but I don't know how to write a book, and I don't have any ideas for a plot. So, Papa, if you're going to give me that holy nudge, you're going to have to provide, because I don't know what to write about. Well, at the time, I had a patient who had broken his wrist, and he was, I mean to tell you, old Florida. He was a cracker if there ever was a cracker. And you know the type. Black teeth where there were any, you know. He had, like, greasy, unkept, uncut hair. He had dirt embedded so deeply in the lines in his face that it would never come out, and he smelled very interesting. I used to think maybe he had stopped on his way to the clinic and rolled in a little roadkill or something. But he was fascinating, and he would tell me these stories of his ancestors. He went back 6 generations in old Florida, and these stories were just something. They were the things that his relatives had done, most of them illegal, but they were fascinating. And I said, you know, wow, this is really cool. And one day I was interviewing him for a piece I was doing on the Miccosukee Indians of South Florida, because he grew up with the tribe. And he said, you know what? You're the one. I think you're the one. And I'm like, I'm the one what? And he said, I have a story that I've been waiting for the right person, and I'm going to bring it to you. And so the next day, he brought me this 10-page notebook sheath, old notebook paper, with this old lady scrawled handwriting on it, that his grandmother, her name was Kathleen, that she had written when she was 85 years old. It was her memoir of this one incredible year of her life when she was a little girl in 1904 on Merritt Island, back when it was, you know, remote, very, very old Florida, untamed, inaccessible except by boat. The bridges weren't built until the 30s. And it was, whoa. I didn't even make it to the end of the first page before I knew that was the story that God was sending me to write. But Kathleen Harrison had passed away shortly after she had written down this, whoa, story about an amazing journey of faith with miracles and life and death situations and all kinds of pirates and all kinds of things that was amazing. But there were a few things she mentioned in this very short piece that couldn't be finished. and her relatives didn't really know the answers to what happened at the end of the story. So we had to tie the loose ends together, so they gave me permission to fictionalize the story. And that became my first book, The Distant Shore. It took 2 years to write The Distant Shore and another year to find a publisher. But I was just blown away by the reactions I've gotten to this book and some of the letters that just make me weep about how God has used this book to touch other people's hearts and lives. And that was my prayer. That was my whole thing. You know, whatever I write, Lord, use this to touch another heart, just like you touched mine with Christy. And then that book sold very well, and the publisher wanted the next book within 4 months. So I learned to write relatively quickly, but the sequel then was Billowing Sails, which takes the same life of Emily, that's who Catherine Harrison is in the book, I named her Emily, on another year. And so that's been an amazing journey with that. And then after that, another writer who now is world famous, her name is Suzanne Woods Fisher. Anybody read her books? She writes fiction and nonfiction about the Amish. She's huge. Well, she and I started out together. You know, I knew her when. She was a nobody. But she and I co-wrote this book, Grit for the Oyster. This was my third book. It was 250 Pearls of Wisdom for Aspiring Writers. It's a kind of a combo devotional / how-to for people who feel like the Lord is prompting you to get your own story in print, or there's something that's burning inside of you that makes you want to write. This is the book for you. So anyway, that was my third book, and then I've always liked humor, women's humor, and I love to read it, and I thought, well, if I love to read it, maybe I should try to write it. So my first effort at that took about 2 years to get somebody to pay attention. But that book became Mom Needs Chocolate, and it actually won an award. I was very, very honored about that. But it's from it's all the funny stuff from pregnancy through menopause, basically, for women about and it's how to live a godly life in the trenches, basically. And that book opened the door for me. I was included then in this one, Heavenly Humor from the Woman's Soul, which was all my heroes, my writing heroes from the Women of Faith ladies. Patsy Claremont, Anita Renfro, Martha Bolton, and I was in one of the 12 writers. I'm a wee little name there at the bottom, but I was cool with that, you know, to be included with them in a humor compilation. And that opened the door for me. Then I'm just going to briefly mention some of these books out here because everybody always asks, well, what are these about? So I'm going to just briefly tell you. This is Prayers for Daughters. There's only a few copies of these left. They're out of print, and I think there's only 4 copies left in the world. But they're $5, and they're for girls, tweens, ages 8 to 12, and they're prayers that include things that are interesting and important to girls at that age. And then 365 Chickisms. That's just a whole bunch of little funny quips from my other books, 1 per day of the year. And if you buy 4 of my books, you get one of these for free. So, and then what really, really changed my writing world was this book right here, Too Blessed to Be Stressed. I began for Barber Books writing a series called Take on Life. And these were all, each book is about a different women's issue that, and they're serious issues, but we approach it with a lot of humor, where it's called Truth Gift Wrapped in Humor. And so it's a lot of scripture, tons and tons of scripture, and lots of funny stories and anecdotes, and ways to apply scripture to everyday life. So the first book was about stress, Too Blessed to Be Stressed, and I'm going to come back to this in a second. And then the second book in this series is More Beauty, Less Beast, Transforming Your Inner Ogre. That's about self-control. And I get men always go, I need to buy that book for my wife. Say that very loud. And the most recent one that has come out is Fear, Faith, and a Fistful of Chocolate. That one's about fear, of course. And then the fourth book is going to be coming out in the fall, and it's Too Loved to Be Lost. And it's about unconditional love, Papa's unconditional love for us. Now I'm going to jump back because this is part of my story about God making your dreams come true if you just dare to follow them. This book came out, and normally in publishing, you have about 6 months to make it or break it. After 6 months, you're pretty much done. Your book's either going to have sold well or not at all, and it's going to end up back and get either leaving the bookshelf stores, bookstore shelves, which often happens even earlier than 6 months, Unless you're Beth Moore or Joyce Meyer or, somebody like that, you stay forever on those shelves. Max Lucado, but all the rest of us, we come and go off those shelves pretty regularly. And then this one came out about 2.5 years ago, and for some reason, and no one understands why, the publishers don't, my agent doesn't, I don't get it, but it had been out over a year when suddenly the sales took off. Out of the clear blue sky. I know where it came from. I absolutely know. My agent kind of thinks maybe at that point, people started realizing you could use all of these books in the series for Bible studies because they all have questions at the end. And they're very seeker-friendly for groups that are trying to attract women who aren't really churched. We've used them several. We have a neighborhood Bible study that we've had going for about 3 years. Cindy and I are both in it. It's awesome. We have women from all different faiths and all different levels of faith. And we've used 2 of these books as Bible studies because they're focused on relationships. Relationships with each other and relationships, your personal relationship with Papa God. So they're very good for Bible studies. Well, suddenly these sales took off. And I just kind of thought that was cool, but I didn't really understand until I received a package in the mail of 6 contracts for babies of Too Blessed to Be Stressed. I call them my blessings babies, my baby blessings. But I wasn't sure what that was all about. The first one to come out, I was very touched and thankful, but I wasn't sure what Papa God had in mind at that point. The first one to come out was Too Blessed to Be Stressed Planner for 2014. That was cool. And then the next one was the Too Blessed to Be Stressed. This is a little flip calendar, one for every day of the year. It doesn't have the year on it. It just has the date, so you can go through them and over again. And then the Bible Promise book just came out. This is full of scriptures, tons and tons of scripture about different topics that are in Too Blessed to Be Stressed in the book, like pride, trust, worry, different topics, and it lists a pretty extensive list of all the scriptures that have to do with that topic. I'm sorry if I hablo español poorly and I screw this up for you Hispanic people, but Muy Benedicida para Estar Estresada came out, which is the Spanish version. And then two more babies are coming out. The 2015 planner and the journal are coming out in the next couple of months. So I was really not sure where Papa was going with that one until I started getting letters. And I got especially one, and I meant to bring it, but I forgot. It was from a gal up in New York. I didn't know her. And she had bought the planner. She had bought this planner in the store. And she was writing to say, no, at first I thought she was accusing me. She said, I didn't know this book was about religion. She said, nowhere on that book, on the cover, does it say anything about being religious. And I'm like, She said it used the word inspirational. And so I was getting my hackles up. I was all ready to be, lambasted. And then she said, and I want to tell you, I am so glad I bought it because it has changed my life. She said, I just bought it because I like the cover. I didn't even open it till I got home. And she said, and I started flipping through it, and she said, you've got Bible verses in there. And she said, and all of them, they were perfect. They were just perfect for me. I'm a young business owner, and I'm full of stress. I live in anxiety. And she said, and they were perfect for me. And the quotes that you took from your book, and she said, I've never been to church since I was a little girl. And then she wrote, this Sunday, I'm going back to church. She said, I went out and bought my own Bible yesterday. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Oh, my goodness. And then I realized that's what he's doing. He's using these to go in the back door of people's hearts who may not normally approach God in a church and not step foot through a door, but they're willing to read a cute little book with fun little flowers on the front that's bright pink. Oh, wow. And I'm just, it's not Christy. So I kind of struggle with that. This is not really what I had in mind, but he has so much more in mind than we do. We just have to turn it over to him. So I'm going to close with just a couple of funny stories of things that have happened to me as a writer and a speaker. But I wanted to leave you with two thoughts before I switch gears here. One is, consider your dreams. Spend a little time in your dreams. And number two, seriously consider that Papa God might be given you the holy elbow through your dreams.